Hi, my name is Carrie Valdez, and I'm going to talk to you today about EMDR. EMDR is an acronym for Eye Movement Desensitization Reprocessing. It's a little fancy. It actually started with PTSD for the soldiers coming back from war. Over time, it has evolved immensely as far as the research is concerned and the benefits that we see with EMDR. So it's been around a while. It's not used as often as it really should be as far as therapy is concerned. What I use it for is with children, and pretty much any diagnosis at this point would benefit from EMDR. It started with big traumas, which would be the most obvious ones: abuse, neglect, wrecks, deaths, that kind of stuff. And it also includes little traumas, like with a little t, like anxiety things associated with divorce and moves and ugly comments from people at school and just changing schools and things like that. I also want you to keep in mind that traumas with a little t are all relative to the person, right? And I'm going to explain that in that there can be something that happens at school with one child. So let's say that one child is being picked on at school, being called names, ugly things are being said to this child. The exact same person says the exact same things to the person standing on the other side of them. And the person on the other side of them responds by thinking, you're an idiot and I'm just getting away from you, and thinks nothing of it. Whereas this person who heard it has taken it with them throughout life to imply that they are not likable. And they then go through life thinking that they are not likable. So the situation also happens with people that are getting divorced. You have two kids in a house, one child is fine, it was awful, it sucked, nobody liked it, right? Sails through it, is fine. This other child never did, thought it was the most awful thing, thought it was horrible, but never recovered from it. Right? So that's what I mean by trauma is still relative. It's relative to that individual person, right? So we don't necessarily know what is a trauma, and parents don't necessarily know what one child sees as a trauma and another child doesn't, and it's hard for them to differentiate and know if it really was a trauma or not, right? So what I do in therapy is I do this history, and I find out about their births and pregnancy and health issues and possible separations from caregivers and abuse things or suspected abuse, and all those kinds of things play into this, because the goal is to get back to the earliest trauma, right? The earliest trauma that you can remember, so that then we can process through that first. With kids, sometimes they don't even necessarily remember it, because if I'm working with a 6-year-old, the trauma might have occurred when they were 2 or they were 6 months old. And they don't necessarily cognitively remember that, but I can trigger their memory for it through the help of the parents with maybe some pictures or telling them stories that I know about what happened with kids when they experienced these things. And we can process through it that way. We can process through that then, even though they don't necessarily remember it. So the reason that it's still significant is because this is your brain, right? And trauma is stored in the brain exactly as it occurred. Okay, exactly as it happened to them, the age that it happened to them. So if something happened to a child when they were 3, right, it's stored exactly as it occurred at the age that it occurred, right? The problem with that is you are no longer 3, right? My kids might be 6, they might be 10, you might be 40, you might be 50. Right? But this trauma is still stored right there exactly as it occurred when you were 3 years old. So the goal of EMDR is we move this trauma from where it's stored as a 3-year-old to over here, so you then see it as a 10-year-old or a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old. Okay? So the way we move it is through bilateral stimulation. Now, we're only moving the memory, so we don't change the memory. We're not changing what happened, and we're not making the memory go away. So we're not making you forget it either. all we're doing is moving where it's stored, okay? So that you then see it as you currently are and not as it occurred, okay? Now, the way we do that is through bilateral stimulation. So bilateral stimulation is, I'm gonna show you on me, if I can do it. If I can do it to myself, I mean, it's a little hard. But all you do is you follow the person's fingers with just your eyes, okay? I missed it. I'm gonna try it again. It's a little harder to do it to yourself than it is when I'm doing it to someone else. But that's how it originated, right? Was with the hand movement. Now, what I do in therapy with children is I have earbuds or headphones that they can use that they put on, and what they hear is ping, 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 or they have little hand buzzers that they can hold and it goes buzz, 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 buzz. Or they can put it under their legs, one under one thigh and one under the other thigh, and it buzzes, right? So that is the actual bilateral stimulation that moves the memory from where it's currently stored, exactly as it occurred, at the age it occurred. We move it over here so that then you can then process and see it differently. So for example, if you grew up in a house with domestic violence and your earliest memory is when you were 3 and what you heard or saw, that memory we will then process and you will move it to here. And now you are an adult and that can't happen to you because you're not in a relationship like that anymore. And it was awful when it happened and you don't know why your parents did that, but that is not your life. Right? So then you take it and you see it completely differently than the way it's currently stored, right? So what happens by not moving these, then you actually are triggered throughout life from this one trauma, from this one memory. And remember, it's trauma with a big T or a little t, and trauma is all relative. So the 4th grader that got told by the teacher that she is dumb because she does not understand long division and goes through life thinking that she's incompetent, it has been triggered throughout her whole life that I am incompetent, right? So we go in and we move this memory to here, and then it's, that teacher is ridiculous. And I cannot believe that I have spent my life thinking that I was incompetent because of this teacher who just had a bad day, who was in no mood to re-explain things that day, or for whatever reason it was, right? So I encourage you to do some research with EMDR. Kids do it super fast. EMDR would take about 6 weeks, what traditional therapy would take about 2 years, depending upon the trauma and the severity, right? What we're talking about. And the same is true for kids. It's about half the time. Kids can do it faster because I'm not going that far back in time, right, to get to their memories. They don't have as much junk in the way, so they process much faster, right? Their little brains go to happiness so quickly that they get through it way faster. So it's very effective and rewarding for the kids as well as for me to see significant progress in my clients so quickly. If you have any questions, you can email me through my website or call me. You can Facebook message me on Parent Talk with Carrie on Facebook. But there are lots of ways to get in touch with me if you have questions. I currently am doing EMDR in Nashville with children. So any questions, you can also Google EMDR. There is a lot of information and a lot of research there that is really significant and very powerful in changing lives. So until next time, thank you very much.